All the tier one guys, they go do the most dangerous jobs in the world. But the difference, they get to get on an airplane and come back to the United States of America. Police officers are deployed 365 days a year, 7 days a week, in a city that they have to work in. You want to talk about paranoia? I can't even go to Best Buy with my son without being bumped into somebody that I arrested for a drug charge. And I don't know if he's going to kill me right here, right now. That's paranoia. 185 law enforcement officers killed themselves in 2023. 136 died in the line of duty. Why are we having more officers dying by self-inflicted gunshot wounds than they are fighting crime? It's because the leadership is pushing us to the point where we would rather kill ourselves than have to see your fucking face in the morning. That's the problem, and it needs to be addressed nationwide. Bad leaders need to be held accountable. They need to be fired. There are some good-ass cops out there, man, still doing the right thing. When the time comes and there's a little hiccup in what they're doing, they're thrown to the wolves, and their families have to suffer because it comes out of a paycheck. That's bullshit.
What's happening, fam? I want to have this conversation about this topic of what it ended with: bad leadership. Bad leadership is as American as apple pie. I'm gonna use what he's talking about, the police and the military or whatever. In this reference, in America, there are people who fix problems and there are people who create problems. And when it comes to the hierarchy of industries, businesses, government, usually the people who create problems are the people in charge. Okay? And it's been like that. That's how it's always been. And what I see when we talk about like bad policing, a lot of the times what happens is the leadership keeps bad cops, the leadership keeps crooked cops, the leadership keeps criminals who are cops. You do it all the time. That's what leadership does. When it comes to policing crime, the leadership doesn't actually bust. They don't want to stop crime because just like that concept of the medical field, if we cure the disease, we can't profit off of it. You get what I'm saying? It's the same thing with crime. If you could actually quote unquote cut the head off the snake, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. But they never cut the head off the snake, even though they know who's actually they know what they can actually do to actually bottleneck these situations, but they won't do that, which is bad leadership. You get what I'm saying? And so you wind up with this constant, I gotta bust this guy, I gotta bust this guy, I gotta bust this guy, I gotta bust this guy. We gotta stop this and stop that. But usually, the people that are actually doing the most and contributing to the most to these problems, they run around scot-free, la-di-da. And like I said before, they know these people. Now, the military is different. They got different rules. Okay. But there's consequences. I would say that there's a better set of consequences in the military if you just want to run off and be crazy and just do whatever you want to do. There's some nutcases in the military. Don't get it, but there's consequences. But you remember there've been a lot of military cover-ups of people killing their own and essaying their own and torturing that leadership covers that stuff up. So it's like, if you have uh, the capacity to cover up criminality, you can be a leader in America. Okay, that's the gist of it, though. Think about it. Like people think the superintendents in schools don't know, they're just there for a paycheck. They don't really, they're not making school better. They're the quote unquote leadership, right? When we talk about politicians, because politicians are supposed to be the leaders in America, people look at politicians as what? Paid off flunkies for corporations who don't have the guts to actually stand up for the quote unquote American citizen. But that's been the stereotype pretty much my whole lifetime. That's because, but guess what? That's why the term, they're such a politician. They'll say anything and do anything per se to get themselves in a position, but they won't do anything to fix anything. That's the political spectrum. Um, Business. That's part of business, is part of the having a conglomerate that if you can get big enough, you can crush all the competition, and basically either you're going to be on the side of the monopoly, or you're going to be bought out by the monopoly, because they're going to squeeze your business at every angle, which basically leaves America less competitive, and um and doesn't actually, how can I say, doesn't help the economy to grow, or even maintain and circulate, because you wind up with less and less people working, and companies getting bigger and bigger. So more goods but less people who service. So it's crazy, but that's that. But that's looked at as good leadership, because businesses will, um they'll get rid of their employees for the chairman, or the board, to give the board more money, and it don't make no sense. But and that's considered good leadership, right? We got, how can I say this part? I'll do it this way. We have the church. The church is looked at as an institution for fleecing money out of people looking to get closer to God. So the most prevalent and prominent church members are the people who are basically, what do you call it, mega church pastors now. It's blatant. They're in it for the dollars, and and you trying to pay your way to heaven through them, and nobody's ever, and the relationship with God ain't getting no better. And that's the leadership. So I did education, medical, yeah, yeah. Because I'm law enforcement. I already talked about that. Military, yes. Um, Business, yes. Uh, what do you call that? What do you call that? God dog it. I'm trying to think, like, it's business, but it's government. Like sanitation, postal, shoot, aviation, FAA, and even in those fields, it's the same premise. Like, your employees to death, and you get somebody to supervise them who was probably 9 times out of 10. That's what I was trying to talk about: the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So in a general sense, you got management of companies who are people who were probably not good at working, and their management, because their job is to screw over the workers, so they can get extra money, hopefully at the end of the day, which doesn't mean they will. But I say that because they've constantly talked about wage theft. Who's in a position to steal people's money? Management. Wage theft. So that's a thing. But that's the leadership aspect of America. Historically, a lot of uh, highly successful people were considered leaders because of capitalism, but in actuality, they were terrible leaders. Like you would say, Thomas Edison was a person who stole people's inventions and paid people for their inventions, but wasn't so. That was his form of leadership. If you work under me, if you work with me, hey, I'm taking that. Kind of like, and that goes on to this day. Like in any type of industry where you have to create something in a lab, normally you'll work for a company. They'll have the lab on the site. If you create anything out of your ingenuity in your mind at their facility, they own it. And hey man, you made something. What we're gonna do? We're gonna give you a raise. You know, so the product you created here made us billions of dollars. So we're gonna bump you up to maybe 200,000 a year now. Great. I'm like, wait, what? That's the leadership. You get what I'm saying? That was part of the business class of leadership. Business deals are done on the golf course. What the what? Why were they done on a golf course and not in a boardroom, in a business room, not in the office? What's going on? Because the businessmen ain't really working. Because we got out of actually businessmen knowing the the whole scale of their business from bottom to top. It just be, I'm gonna get in a position. Nepotism. You know what I'm saying? I know a guy, and the guy knows me. I'm gonna inherit this from my dad. So the leadership has always been bad. Always been bad. But I'm gonna leave it at that. Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.